Hey, what's going on YouTube? In today's video, I want to highlight some resources that you could use in order to learn a skill, better your craft, in order to get into a cybersecurity career or position. The more that I'm on YouTube, the more I see other content creators just putting stuff out there that will not help you, just to kind of exploit you and get more views on their channel, just clickbait. I'm not going to call out any channels. There is a few that are out there that are amazing. Actually, there's a lot out there that are really good, but there are a few that are just ranking in views, and the information that they're providing is nothing that you could use in order to progress in the industry. So with that being said, let's go over a few websites and a few resources that you could use in order to get started today. Before we get started, I wanted to highlight what goes on this channel. On this channel, we do everything from developing Python scripts, PowerShell scripts, to hacking, system administration, automation tasks. We do it all. I am getting more into creating content as the time goes on, as I now have my environment set up. So with that being said, definitely drop a like and subscribe for more content. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first one that I want to call out is overthewire.org. I have mentioned this several times in my videos in the past. Overthewire.org is where I started a long time ago. There's a few others, but this one stood out because it is still around and something that I remember that I used. More specifically, Bandit. Bandit is a way to learn the Linux operating system. It's not all hacking. A lot of it's just basic stuff, and it kind of gives you tips as you're going through the levels. For instance, on this level, it gives you the commands that you may need to solve this. So ls for listing out contents of a directory, cd, cat, file to determine what file type is, find, grep, all this different stuff. It's definitely worth looking at as if you do not know anything about Linux, or if you want to just brush up on a few things. Definitely give it a look. This is just Bandit. If you go back to War Games, this one I believe was web application. There's a bunch of others. Definitely take a look. It's definitely worth your time. The next resource that I wanted to point out, again, I did also talk about this just recently, and probably a few months ago, maybe last year. I'm not really sure, but it is underthewire.tech. And here is a good way to learn PowerShell. It is specifically related to PowerShell, and I think PowerShell is almost a necessary language or scripting language that you should learn, especially considering most things could be done on an automated fashion. And it is for Windows, and now even PowerShell could be used on other operating systems as well. Different war games to walk through, kind of similar to how Over the Wire is. You're going to go in there, it gives you some tips, and you learn the different commandlets. As you proceed through the levels, the difficulty obviously increases, but it's definitely worth your time to take a look at that. The next one is, as we go on, more and more are going to be related specifically to cybersecurity. The first two kind of are general. Here's the National Cyber League. I found about this just recently, and I wanted to give it a shout out, as it is pretty exciting for those that are in the industry. It is a CTF, a place for capture the flag challenges at a national level. You have to meet certain requirements in order to participate, but I think you can still participate, but maybe not be in the rankings, but you can still use it for practice. So for instance, for the fall 2023 season, I am registered for it, and it does start this weekend, so I'm excited to kind of check it out. First time playing in it. But it's definitely worth a shot to kind of just brush up on the capture the flag and learning cybersecurity skills, because there's a lot to be learned within the capture the flag environment. And then we have two OWASP, I guess, simulations or virtual machines that you could spin up in order to learn different techniques in hacking. So this one is WebGo, and this is a web application that you could spin up. In the past, I did a Docker image. I believe I have a video on it, if it is not already public. And in there, we kind of talked about the different lessons that you could learn. Essentially, you're going to spin up a Docker image, and it's going to bring up a web application that you could access on your local machine. And you're going to use your knowledge in order to progress through the website to gain information, maybe passwords, using SQL injection, or referencing certain objects like an indirect object reference. It's definitely worth taking a look at. There's a lot to be learned, and as you're going through it, it does have, here's the different lessons right here, but as you're going through it, it does give you a walkthrough, so it's not like you are walking in the dark. It does kind of help you out and guide you through it. And obviously, there's tons of walkthroughs and videos out there today. This one I do not have experience with, but I thought it was pretty cool. Today, when I was taking a look for the WebGoat, I saw some mention of this, and it looks like obviously it is free open source and it is a vulnerable web application similar to WebGoat. Here's the different features. So it looks like it's got 40 vulnerabilities and challenges, contains stuff relevant to the top 10 in 2007, 2010, 13, and 2017. So it's definitely worth taking a look at, as most of those today are probably still going to be relevant, especially for those that are in the industry. They already know that people do not put cybersecurity as a top priority. So these things are definitely relevant and worth learning. The last one that's kind of similar as far as web application goes is the DAM vulnerable web application, similar to the WebGoat and the one I just discussed. It is a web application that you could spin up on your local machine, and you are going to use the same techniques and tactics that you have done previously. But here, it is a PHP and MySQL web application that is vulnerable. So just to give you a different perspective and different techniques that you could use throughout the 3 different web applications that I just discussed. Going on, another cool one that I've used over the years. I used this actually recently, but I've used Metasploitable 1, which is quite old, and I believe this is old as well. It's not too new. Not sure when it came out. But what Metasploitable 2 is a vulnerable Linux machine. In this case, it is a Ubuntu Linux machine. So you could spin this up, and it has open ports and different vulnerabilities. So allowing you to scan it and see what's going on with this machine and attacking it. And you could even fix those vulnerabilities and patch it, because this machine will be spun up on your own local machine. So you could do whatever you want with it. And it's definitely worth checking out, as you will be able to find walkthroughs online to learn on what tools you should be using for scanning and stuff like that. So definitely give that a look. It is worth your time. So enough of the labs and the different websites that I had just discussed. One thing that I had read over the years that I thought was very useful for the beginning when I was just getting started. I'm not sure if it was this book or a different series, but this was the same. I have it on my shelf for now. I'm actually looking at it, but I don't feel like getting up and looking at the exact version of it. But it was Linux Basics for Hackers. And in there, it pretty much is just everything for Linux. It wasn't really specifically related to hackers. So it kind of gives content related to over the wire, learning the Linux operating system. I definitely learned a lot from this book. I actually referenced it probably a few months ago when I was looking up some things, or just kind of refreshing on different topics related to the Linux operating system. And I think it is worth your time. Definitely give that a check. The next one, this one's pretty cool. I didn't have this one per se, but I had another one. The reason why I'm pointing out Python is because Python is super useful when trying to automate different tasks, not only in cybersecurity, but system administration. But when looking at cybersecurity, when you're like hacking or performing scans, you could set up Python scripts to do any number of actions. For instance, setting up your own port scanner, or just recently, I set up Python scripts to automate some Tenable security tasks. So that was cool. But definitely give this one a look, as it gives you kind of a project base. It's kind of the different projects to help you learn the topic of Python. And I think it's worth it. I do love these books, and I would say that it is worth your time. And last but not least, I am going to give a shout out to the series that I have done in the past, or even my channel. This is just a quick example of a SQL injection lab that I had set up. We go from the very beginning of introducing the topic, and we create everything that is in this scenario. So we create the actual PHP files, the web application. We do everything. We create the login forms. We do it all. So you kind of get a better idea of what is going on behind the scenes. So we do the basic introduction to SQL. So we even talk about the different SQL injection techniques. Installing and configuring a MySQL database, so the backend stuff. We go into the web server configuration. We finally start attacking it. First, we start with some manual injection. We use Burp Suite. We use SQL Map. And then the last one, which was cool, we used Python. And we kind of broke this out into a 23-minute video, which talks about a Python script that I had developed. It's nothing crazy, but it kind of highlights a blind SQL injection technique. It's definitely worth your while to start from part 0 and work your way down if you were not familiar, or if you just kind of want to get a highlight and see what's going on. check out the very last one, or the one before that, to get it, just to see the techniques used in this attack. And then last but not least, again, I'm going to give a shout out to my channel, cyberme.tech. Here's a blog that I had created and maintained over the years. Nothing too crazy, but we do some cybersecurity stuff and some system administration stuff and just automation, just random stuff that I've done over the years. And here's where I document it. Most of the stuff that you find on my YouTube videos are now being documented here. So for instance, if we go into the Automate Tenable Center Python, I'm sorry for the ads, as I just recently implemented this. Maybe in the future I will introduce a way to get rid of the ads if others are looking for that. But with that being said, in this I put the video in here, so you have access to the video, and then I break down the code. So here's the full snapshot of the code. Then we break down each individual line. Just another way for those that are looking to learn and get familiar with Python or any of the other topics that I discuss on my channel. So this is a kind of first for the channel. I don't usually talk about how you could get into the field, but I do think it's worth talking about, and I do think going forward I will do this once a month to introduce new topics or new ways that you could use to get into the field, as I always want others to learn. If I win, you win. That's my thought process when I do this channel. I want others to be able to have the same resources that I have. So definitely check out everything that I pointed out today, and make sure you just get hands-on and do what you can to learn. Just watching YouTube videos on how to get there is not enough. Make sure you put in the time, set up these home labs, set up these different services, exploit these vulnerabilities, or just developing random scripts. Just get your hands on, learn, do what you can to better your craft and proceed into the industry. So with that being said, that's going to close out today's video. I hope you enjoyed this format. As I go forward, I will kind of make changes to how I go about this, or maybe even provide examples. I'm not sure, but I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, never stop learning.